The Blessed Lord well understands the higher extinction of consciousness. What then, Lord, is this higher extinction of consciousness? In this matter, Potapada, those ascetics and Brahmins who say one's perceptions arise and cease without cause or condition are totally wrong. Why is that? One's perceptions arise and cease owing to a cause and condition. There are some perceptions arise through training and some pass away through training. What is this training, the Lord? What is this training? The Lord said, Potapada, a Tathagata arises in this world, an Arahant, Sammasambuddha, endowed with wisdom and conduct, well-farer, knower of the worlds, incomparable trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened and blessed. He, having realized it by his own super-knowledge, proclaims this world with its devas, maras and brahmas, its princes and people. He preaches the Dhamma, which is lovely in its beginning, lovely in its middle, lovely in its ending, in the spirit and in the letter, and displays the fully perfected and purified holy life. A disciple goes forth and practices the moralities, etc. This is in Sutta number 2. That for him is morality. And then Potapada, that monk who is perfected in morality, sees no danger from any side, etc., etc. In this way he is perfected in morality. He guards the sense doors, etc., as in also in Sutta 2, and goes through the various stages of charana, conduct or practice of the holy life. And then having reached the first jhana, he remains in it. And whatever sensations of lust that he previously had disappeared. At that time, there is present a true but subtle perception of delight and happiness, born of detachment, and he becomes one who is conscious of this delight and happiness. In this way, some perceptions arise through training, and some pass away through training. And this is that training, said the Lord. Stop here for a moment. This part is interesting. First, the Buddha says, when a person attains the first jhana, whatever sensations of lust that he previously had disappear. Now, we went through the Sutta number 2, where the Buddha said that even before a monk attains the first jhana, the 5 hindrances disappear. But that state, the upachara samadhi, is very near to jhana. So after that he enters the first jhana, and when he comes out of it also, the 5 hindrances are not there, we mentioned. But that is a criterion. Some people say they have attained jhana, but the anger is still very strong. The lust is also very strong. If they have attained the first jhana, the 5 hindrances, even when they come out of it, the 5 hindrances are no more hindrances. As I mentioned, they are so low that they don't hinder a person anymore. They don't obsess the mind. When they obsess the mind, they are called hindrances. When they don't, they are not called hindrances. So that is a standard. Some people, you can judge. Some people, they go for retreat and then the teacher says they have attained 4 jhanas. Some even say they have attained 8 jhanas. The teacher says so. But when we observe them, we find their anger is still very strong. Then definitely I don't think they have attained any jhana. Then the other thing interesting here, there is a true but subtle perception of delight and happiness. This piti and sukha is a subtle perception. A lot of people never study the suttas and believe what the later books say. The later books like the Visuddhimagga, they talk about different types of rapture. Which is a translation for piti. Here it says delight. So they say they are strong, very strong. Piti can overwhelm a person and all this thing. But you look here, the Buddha says this piti and sukha actually is a very subtle perception. But even though it's very subtle, the monk who enters this first jhana, he's conscious of this piti and sukha, delight and happiness. Which shows the state of the first jhana, that person when in the jhana, his mind is he's very aware. He's not like some people say, what's the use of jhana? When you enter jhana, you're not mindful. But in jhana, a person is never as mindful as when he is in jhana. The mind is very sharp and very strong. and fully aware of whatever is happening. So here, even the delight and happiness is subtle. He is very aware of it, very conscious of it. So here the Buddha is saying that some perceptions arise through training and some pass away through training. The one that pass away is the sensations of lust has passed away. And those that arise is like this piti and sukha, delight and happiness. Again, among the subsiding of this one is, here it says thinking and pondering. I prefer thought directed and sustained. This is vitaka and vichara. Among with the subsiding of thought directed and sustained, by gaining inner tranquility and unity of mind, reaches and remains in the second jhana. This is free from thought directed and sustained, born of concentration, filled with delight and happiness. His former true but subtle perception of delight and happiness, born of detachment, vanishes. At that time there arises a true but subtle perception of delight and happiness, born of concentration. And he becomes one who is conscious of this delight and happiness. In this way, some perceptions arise through training and some pass away through training. Stop here for a moment. So the perception that pass away is firstly the thought directed and sustained, and then also the subtle perception of delight and happiness born of detachment. And the one that arises is the subtle perception of delight and happiness born of concentration. Again, after the fading away of delight, he dwells in equanimity, mindful and clearly aware, and he experiences in his body that pleasant feeling of which the noble ones say, "Happy dwells the man of equanimity and mindfulness." And he reaches and remains in the third jhana. His former true but subtle sense of delight and happiness, born of concentration, vanishes, and there arises at that time a true but subtle sense of equanimity and happiness, and he becomes one who is conscious of this true but subtle sense of equanimity and happiness. In this way, some perceptions arise through training and some pass away through training. Again, with the abandonment of pleasure and pain, and with the disappearance of previous joy and grief, he reaches and remains in the fourth jhana, a state beyond pleasure and pain, with utter purity of equanimity and mindfulness. His former true but subtle sense of equanimity and happiness vanishes, and there arises a true but subtle sense of neither happiness nor unhappiness, and he becomes one who is conscious of this true but subtle sense of neither happiness nor unhappiness. In this way, some perceptions arise through training, and some pass away through training. So this description up to the fourth jhana. Again, by passing entirely beyond bodily sensations, by the disappearance of all sense of resistance, and by non-attraction to the perception of diversity, seeing that space is infinite, he reaches and remains in the sphere of infinite space. In this way, some perceptions arise through training, and some pass away through training. Stop here for a moment. As I mentioned before in my earlier talks, that when a person attains this first arupa or arupa jhana, here it says, passing entirely beyond bodily sensations, means that the five sense doors close. There is no seeing, there is no hearing, smell, taste, touch. These five senses close. That's why then only he enters the arupas. Again, by passing entirely beyond the sphere of infinite space, seeing that consciousness is infinite, he reaches and remains in the sphere of infinite consciousness. In this way, some perceptions arise through training, and some pass away through training. Again, by passing entirely beyond the sphere of infinite consciousness, seeing that there is no thing, he reaches and remains in the sphere of no-thingness, and he becomes one who is conscious of this true but subtle perception of the sphere of no-thingness. In this way, some perceptions arise through training, and some pass away through training. And this is that training, said the Lord. So here the Buddha describes up to the sphere of nothingness or no-thingness. And also you notice here, those perceptions are subtle, Even the perception of nothingness, of this subtle perception of the sphere of nothingness. Potthapada. From the moment when the monk has gained this controlled perception, he proceeds from stage to stage till he reaches the limit of perception. When he has reached the limit of perception, it occurs to him, mental activity is worse for me. Lack of mental activity is better. If I were to think and imagine, these perceptions would cease, and coarser perceptions would arise in me. Suppose I were not to think or imagine. So he neither thinks nor imagines, and then in him just these perceptions arise. But other coarser perceptions do not arise. He attains cessation, and that Potthapada is the way in which the cessation of perception is brought about by successive steps. Stop here for a moment. When a person attains cessation of perception, it also means that he attains cessation of consciousness. Because the sutta say, once a person has consciousness, it must come together with the other aggregates, making the five aggregates. And so that's why when perceptions cease, consciousness, feeling, etc. cease.